As a quick introduction, my name is Giselle Cram. I'm a registered dietitian in the Northeast Georgia Medical Center Bariatrics Department. And I'm super excited to be here to talk about how small changes in daily habits can equal big losses on this scale. And I'll even show a couple of patient examples so that you can see the benefits that they've been able to get from working with us. So I'm gonna stop my video so we can focus on the PowerPoint slide. I'm sorry, it seems like the slide doesn't want to move, so I may just have to unshare the screen. Oh, there we go. Okay, that worked. All right, so I wanted to start off by explaining briefly, what to expect when working with a registered dietitian, because I know that maybe some of you have not worked with a registered dietitian, don't know what to expect. And what I do in that first session is I ask a lot of questions to get a better understanding of my patient's health and wellness goals. I ask questions to understand weight loss methods that they've tried in the past, what has worked, what hasn't worked. Oh, and everybody, if you can please make sure to mute your microphone and turn off your video so that we make sure we don't have any interruption. Thank you. So I ask questions about weight loss methods in the past, as I said, what has worked, what hasn't worked. Sometimes patients come to me and tell me, Giselle, I've tried calorie counting, I've tried Atkins diet, keto diet, and for whatever reasons, those weight loss methods have not led to sustainable weight loss long-term. But there may be bits and pieces about those weight loss approaches that my patients have found helpful or beneficial. So I still like to ask about it so that maybe if there's something in particular that helped them from that weight loss method, we can utilize in our plan and intervention. I ask questions about typical food intake, frequency, volume, so the amounts of foods, food preferences. That's extremely important for me to understand because I want to make sure that the plan that we talk about and maybe the meal ideas that we think about are things that you like to eat. I don't want you to feel like you're eating this medicine. You're just taking a pill to lose weight. I want to make sure that you're enjoying the food that you're eating during the weight loss journey. I ask about barriers and struggles that maybe my patients have faced in the past that makes it hard for them to be able to achieve long-term weight loss. That always opens up good conversation. I ask about physical activity because I do provide physical activity guidance. I discuss some basic nutrition education in that first appointment. I have patients that come see me with all levels of nutrition knowledge. I have patients that come see me that have a very basic understanding about nutrition and really need a good amount of information to understand nutrition. I do have patients that have a pretty good background and understanding on nutrition, but I still like to talk about the basic nutrition guidelines in the first appointment, just to make sure that we are both in the same page as to what are those evidence-based guidelines that exist nowadays so that we can use that information for our intervention and make sure that we don't have any misinformation. There's a lot of information online that can be deceiving or is not evidence-based. So we try to discuss that a little bit of that during the first session. And of course, we go into more in depth in our follow-up sessions. We always set goals. This is extremely important. And I even make sure that my patient writes down the goal in a sheet of paper that I provide so that we know exactly what are the things that we're working towards. And then we talk about realistic weight loss expectations. So one of the most common barriers that I see for patients to be able to achieve long-term weight loss is that they have unrealistic expectations of the weight loss that they're going to see on a month-to-month basis. It's you know, it's kind of frustrating, but it is true that our bodies are designed to hold on to the weight. Our bodies do not want us to lose weight. So when you start eating healthier and you're lowering your overall calorie intake, your body is going to do whatever it can to prevent that weight loss. So, you know, being aware of that lets us understand why maybe when you start eating healthier and making some changes, you don't necessarily see a huge drop in the scale right away. So this is extremely important for me to talk about with my patients during that first session, so that when they come back for the follow-up, they do not get frustrated, and they actually get excited that they understand and see that that is true progress. I love this visual. This is the tool, my favorite tool to use to teach patients how to build healthy meals. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with it. I just want to give you some of the key points so that you get an idea of what we discuss in our sessions. But essentially what I do is I show them that, first of all, there's a ruler in the bottom that says 9 inches. So that means that the plate needs to be 9 inches, which automatically helps with portion control. Half of the plate, as you can see, there's those dotted white lines. Half of the plate will have the vegetables. And I talked during our sessions, you know, which vegetables fall in that group. And the other half of the plate is divided in half. 1/4 of it contains a lean source of protein. And here we see chicken, but there's a lot of lean sources of protein. Most people think that when they have to, you know, start eating healthy, they just need to eat chicken. And that's not true. There's a lot of variety of lean sources of protein. So I try to remind my patients of that so that they don't feel they're just, you know, eating chicken. And the other 1/4 of the plate is composed of the higher carb foods, like the starchy foods and the fruits as well. So those groups fall in there. This visual really helps with patients understanding what food groups do I need to keep in mind that I need to have in my plate, and what are the right portions so that I get good nutrition, but I'm still able to lose weight. So I really love this tool. This is exactly the same concept, but the reason I'm showing you a different picture is because here you can see that another example of foods that would fall in those groups. So in the vegetables in the previous picture, we were able to see like bell peppers and and broccoli. And here you see more like a salad with spinach and tomatoes. And then you see in the previous picture, there was rice in the starch group, but here they're putting pasta noodles, which a lot of patients come see me and say, Giselle, I tried, you know, this diet or that diet that was low carb, but I'm not able to long-term stay away from, you know, breads or pastas. You know, cutting out starches completely is unrealistic for a lot of patients. So, you know, they get excited to learn when they work with me that you can eat pasta, you can eat bread, you can eat corn, you can eat potatoes, and it doesn't have to be just, you know, sweet potato. It can be white potato too, all kinds of potatoes, you know. But I'm going to teach you healthy ways to prepare those starches so that we don't add a lot of calories to them. And one of the most important things is portion control. That really is the key. And then here we do see chicken again, but as I explained, I have a long list of lean meats that you can use to interchange so that you don't always do chicken. So those were the key points of the nutritional guidelines, but there's also healthy habits that we discussed during our sessions. And I just added some in here. This is most definitely not all inclusive. There's a lot more healthy habits that we discussed during our follow-up sessions, but these are some of the more common ones that we discussed. So not skipping meals. My goodness, this is extremely important. And we live in such a fast-paced environment with work and just, we're just on the go all the time. And it's very common to see patients going 6 or even 8 or even 10 or 12 hours without eating. And they wonder, I'm not eating all day. I wonder why I'm not able to lose weight. And, I do explain how skipping meals impacts your metabolism. And we work on goals so that we can get some food into your system throughout the day to prevent those long hours without eating. Planning, planning, planning. This is also very, very important. So the meal planning and prepping and planning recipes and all of that takes a lot of work. And it can be a very overwhelming habit to implement. So we try to take it, one step at a time. And I really take into consideration my patients' schedule. I have patients that are retired. They have a lot more time for meal planning and cooking. And I have patients that work a ton of hours every week and, have kids and have to go to like sports events and just have really limited time. So I try to work with those patients to figure out how can we still get some planning and some structure in despite of the crazy, lifestyle, the fast-paced lifestyle. Increasing mindfulness of food choices. Some patients can be aware of the foods that they consume just by, making a point of being more aware. But other patients have real difficulty being mindful of their food choices. So I teach them different tools that they can use to increase that mindfulness. And I'm going to talk some examples of that when I talk about the patient examples at the end of my presentation. Ordering healthier foods and practicing portion control at restaurants. Restaurants is an extremely difficult situation at first when we're working on establishing these healthy eating habits. But with time and repetition, it's absolutely doable. I do not discourage patients from eating out at restaurants. And you may be surprised about, a dietitian saying that. Of course, I don't encourage a patient to be eating out in a restaurant every single day. You want to minimize how much you eat out, but I would never expect somebody, to not eat out on a weekly basis because we're just in such a fast-paced environment. And eating out also is about socializing with the family or friends, and it gives us a little break from having to cook anything. You just go sit down and the food is served for you. So I don't discourage patients from eating out at restaurants, but I do teach them skills, tips, tricks, so that they can stay on track with their weight loss goals, despite of, still eating out on a weekly basis. Learning to better listen to the signs of hunger and fullness. This takes time. I mean, this skill right here, this habit, it takes months to master, but it's extremely helpful. Our stomach is constantly communicating with us, and I teach my patients how to listen to your stomach and your body to get a better understanding of when you should eat and when you should stop eating. So it helps control weight that way. Staying well hydrated throughout the day, obviously with, 0-calorie beverages or very low-calorie beverages. Minimizing intake of processed foods, of course. We want to try and eat more whole foods. Controlling portions of foods, as using the plate method that I showed you a couple slides earlier. Challenging yourself to try new recipes. This is something that I put a lot of focus on because a good amount of patients complain to me about, trying to lose weight in the past, but they feel like they get bored with their meals. They end up making the same things over and over, and it's just not exciting, and it makes them want to stop what they're doing and go back to the more palatable foods that they were having before. So I try to spend a good amount of time teaching patients what resources to use online. I give suggestions of cookbooks that they can use to take ideas from. We have a recipe wall in our Gainesville location that every month we put a new recipe in that wall so that we try to keep things exciting for our patients. This is extremely important. So I do put some time and effort into this particular bullet point. What I like about this approach, and this is not just what I like, part of the things that I'm going to say here is because I've heard it as feedback from patients. And one of them is that this approach to healthy eating really prevents feelings of deprivation. A lot of my patients nowadays, because of the very popular low carb diets, are coming to me saying, you know, I cut out bread, I cut out pasta, I cut out, you know, I don't know, corn or potatoes. And that really brings up a lot of feelings of deprivation, because if you're sitting with your family and your family is eating rice and you're not eating rice, or if you go to, you know, you're eating with your coworkers and they're having bread and you can't have bread, it just makes you feel deprived. So the last thing that I want is for my patients to feel deprived. So we find a way of incorporating those foods that, in a way that it won't get in the way of their health goals. So that's one thing I like about it. And there's definitely room for high calorie foods. You know, no one, not even a registered dietitian can eat healthy, you know, low calorie 100% of the time. That's impossible. And I would never want that. I would never want that for a patient. I wanted my patients to be able to still enjoy some of those higher calorie foods that they like. I don't know, for example, for some people, it may be ice cream. For some people, I don't know, it may be a hot dog, or I'm just throwing out examples. It could be anything. These are foods, of course, that we don't want to be consuming on a regular basis, but I do teach my patients, you can still have them, but we're going to learn how to incorporate them in your lifestyle in a way that it doesn't get in the way of your health goals. And oh my gosh, that helps my patients. They feel so much less weight on their shoulders, because they know, okay, I can eat ice cream. I can eat hot dogs. I can eat chips. I just choose not to eat them as frequently. And when I do eat them, I'm going to practice portion control. So, you know, we work around these high calorie foods. So that's a good thing. We definitely set realistic goals, and a few at a time. My patients get extremely excited about wanting to make changes, and that's awesome. I love the excitement, but we have to be realistic that we can only change so much at a time. And sometimes one goal can really, you know, be 4 or 5 different goals. Like, for example, when you say, I want to meal plan once a week, that's one goal, but there's a lot of sub goals underneath that one goal. So I try to help make sure that my patient is being realistic with the goal setting so that they don't feel overwhelmed. Because if you're overwhelmed, even with the approach that I'm teaching, it's going to be hard for you to follow it, because we can't change everything at the same time. This approach also helps manage cravings and episodes of high volume eating. So, you know, when you don't skip meals, like I mentioned earlier, and you're building meals, thinking about the different food groups, you're not depriving yourself of the carbohydrates. All of that helps manage cravings and episodes of high volume eating. If somebody skips breakfast and lunch, even if they're not hungry at that time of day, the body's going to make sure to make you feel really hungry at the end of the day, so that you can get that nutrition that you didn't get in the beginning of the day. So that's how that helps. It's a sustainable way of eating, and I get this feedback from my patients a lot. I love to ask my patients, do you see yourself doing this for the rest of your life? And most patients, I would say like 99% of my patients say yes. And I love that, because that is the most important thing. You know, you can find a diet that's going to lead to a 20-pound weight loss in a month, but you have to ask yourself, can I keep this up for the rest of my life? And if the answer is no, then that's not the right approach. So, you know, if a patient tells me, no, Giselle, I don't see myself doing this long term, then I ask them, you know, what did you find challenging? What do you find that is unrealistic for you to follow long term? And I try to make sure to give my patient different alternatives, options, so that we do make it something that he or she can follow long term. I also find this to be a very simplistic approach to healthy eating. Believe it or not, I actually don't ask my patients out of the get-go to track calories, how many grams of protein, how many grams of fat. I don't ask them to calculate carbohydrate. What is it, the macronutrient distribution. You might have heard these things before or even tried it yourself, and they do work. Don't get me wrong, they do work, but that makes, you know, if you have to monitor all of that on top of everything that you need to do with work, with kids, with, you know, everything that you're having to juggle on a day-to-day basis, it can become so overwhelming and difficult to maintain. So I don't ask my patients to track anything in the beginning, only if I find that that tool may make a big difference on whether or not this patient is going to be successful. Then I may suggest, you know what, let's try keeping track of your food intake on a phone app, or maybe let's take pictures of meals. And then this healthy eating approach can fit your lifestyle. And this is a collaborative work between me and my patients. We talk about, you know, the patient gives me more feedback about their lifestyle, and we try to work together to make this healthy eating approach fit for them. So it's flexible, there's flexibility in it. This is the first patient example that I have. This is a patient that I'm still seeing. She's a 35-year-old female. She's 5'4", her height, and her starting weight was 216.5 pounds, which was a body mass index, which is that BMI of 36.5. For those of you that are not familiar with what the body mass index is, it's a measurement that compares your height against your weight, and it gives you this number. And if your number is 30 or higher, then that would fall in the obesity category. And a BMI of 40 or higher would fall in the morbidly obese category. And I'm going to talk more about that with my next patient. Her most recent weigh-in was 188.2 pounds. So we were able to bring down that BMI to 32.2. We're still working together. So she's really close to getting that BMI now on the overweight category instead of the obese category. So she's had a 28.3 pound weight loss in 6 months. That's 13% loss of her total body weight. And what's incredible is that research has showed us that even a 3 to 5% weight loss of your body weight is likely to result in clinical meaningful reductions in triglycerides, blood glucose, hemoglobin A1C, and the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. To show you that that's true with a patient, I added this little chart here with the some of the lab work that she had done, the cholesterol panel, lipid panel. She had them checked in December. We started working beginning of January, and you can see they were above normal, not super high, but they were above normal. And she's so young, you know, 35. If she's having those numbers now, she wanted to make sure that they didn't continue to creep up. So we worked on the dietary changes. She started, you know, losing weight. And then when her cholesterol was checked again in March, she was super happy to see that the numbers went down and that, you know, the LDL is still above normal, but we were able to get those numbers down. And one of the things that she commented is that she loved about this approach is that she said healthy eating is not overwhelming anymore. And to me, that was a home run, because if she doesn't find that healthy eating is overwhelming, that means that she finds this approach simplistic, sustainable, realistic. So I know that she will be able to not just, you know, lose more weight, because we're still working together, but maintain that weight loss long term. And then my last patient, this is a 45-year-old male, and I'm still also working with him. His starting weight was 388 pounds, and that's a BMI of 48.5. So remember what I said in the previous slide, that a BMI of 40 or above puts somebody in the morbidly obese category. And that's the category where the obesity is negatively impacting the lifespan of the patient. So, you know, that's not a good thing for sure. And the most recent weigh-in was 305 pounds, which is a BMI of 38.1. So we were so excited that we were able to get that BMI underneath that 40 or higher. So now we've Now this patient is not in the morbidly obese category anymore, which is fantastic. That's a 83-pound weight loss in 14 months, which is a 21.3% loss of the total body weight. I started working with this patient independently for a couple months. And then this patient was also interested in working with a medical weight loss doctor to see if there was maybe any medications that could be used to help with the weight loss. This patient did not end up using any medications, but he decided that he did find valuable speaking with having contact with the medical weight loss doctor. They do a little bit more in-depth assessment of the body composition. That they have a really nice machine where they can track your fat mass versus muscle mass. So he finds seeing the medical weight loss doctor very, very valuable as well. So, you know, I sometimes connect patients with a medical weight loss doctor or with behavioral health therapy if I find that they would benefit from that. I personally found that what really helped this patient make, you know, the necessary changes was he needed to be more mindful of what he was eating. He would tell me, Giselle, I sometimes eat candy, or I sometimes eat, you know, high fat meats, but not all the time. But I kept asking myself, me, Giselle, is he really not having them all the time, or he's not realizing that he's having them, you know, frequently? So I asked him, hey, can you take pictures of your meals, bring them back to our next session, take as many pictures as you can, and we'll look at it together. And that really opened up a great conversation because we were able to see how frequently he was eating the candy and the higher fat meats and some of the higher calorie foods. And he was able to work on reducing it more, because once he realized, oh, wow, yeah, I do kind of eat them more frequently than I thought I did, then he was able to make the change. And then I also included a lab work to show the improvement of how the weight loss can help with the lab work. He is a type 2, he has type 2 diabetes. His hemoglobin A1C before we started was 6.7, which is actually under control. Anything less than 7% is under control. But as you can see, after a couple of months of working together and achieving some weight loss, we were able to get that number under much better control. So that's definitely a good thing. And like I said, we're still working together. So I'm looking forward to see how these two patients continue with their weight loss journey. So that is the reference, and I am open to any questions at the time, anything you guys may want to know that I haven't talked about. I see there's the chat. Okay, I'm seeing that it says that intermittent fasting has become so popular. It's not a question, someone just stated it, and I can, you know, speak to that. Intermittent fasting has become extremely popular, and I have a good amount of patients that come see me for that initial appointment, and they're already working on intermittent fasting. The reality is, so first of all, intermittent fasting has existed for a very long time, very, very long time. But in the research world, looking at intermittent fasting as a weight loss method, we actually don't have that much research. And the research that we have is not very good quality research. So because registered dietitians, we give recommendations based on evidence, and not just evidence from 1 or 2 years. We want to make sure that we're seeing, you know, a good amount of evidence after a long period of time where we're consistently seeing good results, good outcomes. That's when we start then recommending different weight loss methods. So I don't like to use my patients as guinea pigs to try something that is not evidence-based yet. I'm not discarding it. We don't know what the research is going to say in the future. But I don't recommend it. I actually do encourage patients to not skip meals. They don't have to be eating all day, you know, 3 times a day is good enough. And then I've heard patients talk about how intermittent fasting can change kind of their mood. They don't feel as much energy. I get all kinds of feedback with intermittent fasting, but that is not something that I encourage during the practice, during the counseling sessions, because of the lack of evidence. Okay, I see another one. What do you think about plant-based protein shakes? So protein shakes, I don't sell any protein shakes that you can use, but if a patient is interested in using them, I do find that can be a good way for someone to get good nutrition if they're extremely busy and on the go, and they really can't find time for preparing certain meals. Then maybe a meal replacement shake may be a good idea to bring in. So I'm definitely open to discussing that, but whether or not I encourage you to have a shake will depend on a variety of things. So that would be something that I would need to sit down with you and assess and learn more about your schedule, and then figure out if that would make sense for you. Okay. There's a lot of questions. Amy, remind me until what time I have to speak. I know it's 12:30. I don't know if I have until 12:30 or what. So please let me know if I'm kind of going past the time. But I'm reading here. It says, what's the best way to deal with hunger pangs that tend to hit all through the day while sitting at the computer, working even after having a healthy, filling breakfast and lunch? If we talk and I can see that you're truly having a balanced meal, you've got your protein, you've got some healthy fats, you've got some carbohydrates, because sometimes patients believe that they're having complete healthy meals, but they're not. So I would make sure first, okay, what are you eating? And if I find, what, you are eating a healthy, balanced meal, and I don't see why you would have these high levels of hunger, that may be something where I say, okay, maybe we add a small snack in between meals to keep those hunger levels at bay. But if the snack gets in the way of the weight loss, then that may be even a good referral to a medical weight loss doctor, and see if there's an anti-obesity medication that can help, suppress the appetite, at least while you start working on changing the habits. So that would be a good flag for me to say, this may be a good patient to refer to one of our medical weight loss doctors. And if you have questions about my prices, or if we take insurance and things like that, feel free to give us a call. Danielle is our bariatric specialist, and she would be able to answer those questions. Her number, I'll put it in the message box, in the chat box. Her name is Danielle Jackson. Oh, I see that. Oh, yeah. Okay. Good. What kind of exercise regimen do you recommend for someone starting out? For example, walking for 15 minutes 3 times a week, cardio versus strength training? That's a good question. You have to start from the bottom up, right? So if you're not doing any physical activity at all, absolutely, 15 minutes 3 times a week, that's a great place to start. Get you in a routine. The key is that you want to get into a routine of physical activity. Not worry so much how much you're doing or how intense you're doing, but a routine. Once you've established that routine, then we can work on, let's increase the amount of minutes that you do, or let's increase the intensity level. And then cardio versus strength training, they both help in weight management in different ways. And those are things that I would talk about in more detail here during our counseling sessions. All right, so, I see that Amy has helped me answer some questions about our fees and all. So, okay, I see it says, is there a certain time of day you recommend not to eat after, such as you go to bed at 10, so you should not eat later than 8? I try to recommend patients that they give themselves ideally 3 hours without eating, before going to bed. So finishing the last meal or snack 3 hours before going to bed. And the main reason is because that can affect your sleep. And sleep, getting good quality sleep is important for weight management. If you don't get good quality sleep, chronically, if you don't get good quality sleep, that can affect your hunger and fullness signs that your stomach gives you. You may feel more hungry than usual. So we definitely want to make sure that you've eaten early enough so you digest everything very nicely, and it helps improve your sleep quality. All right, so seems like I've answered most of the questions. Guys, thank you so much for joining. I am open to answering more questions. If you want to send me an email, I don't know if Amy has already included it in the chat box, but I will. It's Giselle Cram Ortiz at nhs.com. Sorry, that's a very long email, but you can send me an email with more questions, or you can give us a call if you have more questions. I would love the opportunity to be able to work with you with your health and wellness goals. So, you know, we're here for you, okay? All right, thank you so much for attending, and I look forward to the opportunity to speak with you again in the future.